Hey, it's me, Egbert. EGGBURT. Check out my website at egbert.com. Now it's back to those two dudes who told me they would bring in big ratings. They better are their history. Here are Brad and John.
The truth hurts, doesn't it? Oh, sure. Maybe not as much as jumping on a bicycle with a seat missing, but it hurts.
You ever done that before, John? Get on a bicycle seat with the seat missing?
You know, it was in college, and that moment I was feeling really lonely and curious, you know?
Okay. I could say something about that whole thing with my ex-boss, Ted Smith. And one day I'll tell the crazy story of... Man, I learned a lot in my younger years by working for my old boss. He was the boss that said, I don't know who discovered the ocean, but it wasn't the effing fish. That was one of my favorite. And I've lived my life by that. At the time, it meant nothing to me. Now it means a lot. Okay, couple things to mention here. First off, there's controversy about this, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't believe this is such a big deal. Have you seen this controversy? It's on Fox, too, and I think it was in the Post-Dispatch and things like that about the controversy of the electric vehicles that the city of St. Louis bought. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I sent you a copy of a paywall-free version to email today, and they bought 9 new Mustangs, right?
Well, they bought the Mach-Es, and what's interesting about this is this is a lot of the Mustang owners are never happy about this. The Mach-E is essentially like a crossover SUV version of the Mustang, and some people will say that would be like taking, a Corvette and putting 4 doors on it, and essentially say, hey, it's the crossover version of the Corvette. Well, the Mach-E is, you can only get it as electric vehicle. And believe it or not, I've ridden in one before, and the acceleration on these things is incredible. And what they're complaining about, they're saying, well, they spent $46,000 a piece for these. Okay, apparently people haven't gone car shopping lately because unless you're buying like, a go-kart, you can't buy anything for under $30,000 anymore. I mean, I know somebody's going to say, well, yeah, you can. Nissan makes the whatever it is. But I mean,
whatever. Yeah, but realistically, in a car in which you could, there's enough room for you to change your mind. There's no way you're getting a car for $30,000.
Right. And the story on this is, the reason for this is they claim that they ordered the new Chevy Bolts, which are the all electric Chevys, but they're back ordered or they're I don't know what in the world it is. So instead they went with the Mach-Es. Okay, the crazy thing about this is that the Mach-Es are fine cars. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with them. I mean, I think it's just because of the fact it's a Mustang. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, they're driving around in Mustangs. And there was a time, I don't know if you know this or not, you probably, you're probably too young, you young whippersnapper, but there was a time when the Missouri Highway Patrol, there were several of them on the road in Missouri, and I used to see them all the time. They were driving Mustangs as state trooper cars. And this started, you know where this started?
No.
In California, because of the fact that the California Highway Patrol got tired of being outrun, because everybody thinks of California as like Los Angeles and San Francisco and San Diego. But California, when you come into if you're driving from Las Vegas to L.A., once especially, that I-15 route between Las Vegas and L.A., it's known that people drive like at 120 miles an hour. It's just because it's flat as a board for the most part of it is. You're in the high, the high desert area, stuff like that. So the Highway Patrol in California got tired of being outrun by all these guys with the supercars, so they bought these Mustangs. And pretty soon they were adopted. And the crazy part of it was some of them were stick shifts. The cops were driving sticks, if you can believe that.
Can you imagine that? By the way, Brad, do you want to define what a stick shift is? Because I think most of our younger listeners have never seen one.
Once upon a time, there were cars that you had on the floor. You had 3 pedals. The right pedal being your gas pedal, your accelerator, your center pedal being your brake, and the left pedal being your clutch, which disengaged the engine from the transmission. So what you do is you'd put your clutch in, you would put it in gear, and then you would slowly do a little dance between the clutch pedal and the accelerator pedal to the point where this car started to move. And then when you got it to a certain speed, you would put the clutch pedal in and you'd shift to a different gear. You're right. It's to the point where, and it's what's sort of sad about it is you can't buy, I don't think in the light trucks, in any of them, like Ford, Chevy, or Dodge Ram, you cannot buy a stick shift anymore. And it used to be to the point where if you go back 50, 60, 70 years, you couldn't find an automatic pickup truck. They were almost all stick shifts. My very first pickup truck that I bought it brand new in 1987 Ford F-150 was a 3-speed, wasn't even a 4-speed. It was a 3-speed manual, with the big old monster stick shift sticking out of the floor and the whole bit. And I loved that truck. And then the next one I got was a 5-speed manual. Well, I love that one too. But once again, the Mach-Es, it's not like a Ferrari or anything like that. And everybody's going like, oh my God, they're buying Mach-Es. And people go like $46,000 as far as the electric vehicles concerned, I would say that's a buy, because I don't think that you can pretty much buy any electric vehicle for under $50,000. I may be wrong, but once again, when Tesla first came out with the Model 3, it's going to be $29,995. Find one for that price. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like,
and I mean, I think you could get an electric, I think, golf cart in Cottleville for that. I know the folks at the Economic Development Corporation over off Mid Rivers Mall Drive they're running a coupon right now. You can find it in Mid Rivers News Magazine. But you can get an EV golf cart for only $30,000. But you have to you have to charge it at the Deerberg slot. So it's like a whole thing.
John,
Brad, what's funny is that the Mustang. What were you gonna say, Brad?
John, it's funny you should mention that, because of the fact that once upon a time you could buy golf carts for relatively inexpensive price. Not anymore.
Oh yeah, no, not. I have someone in my life, Brad, who is serious, who lives a comfortable suburban lifestyle, and this woman is considering buying a golf cart.
Is it okay in the muni she's in? Because some munis don't allow it.
It's questionable. And I told this woman who has a sharp mind, I was like, the first thing you need to do is see even if you see other people in your neighborhood with one, that doesn't mean that it's legal, and it doesn't mean that it won't become a problem. Real quick, Brad, if you want to get back to what a lot of folks don't know about the name Mustang, is that Mustang is actually a type of horse, right?
Right. That's the whole thing.
So that's what it's named after. And so I guess, would this be the first time that someone in politics with the last name Jones got in a little trouble for stalking a horse, or maybe a stalking horse?
Boy, yeah, that's a stretch, John. You have to.
Thank you.
And most
I'm doing a deep bow. It's not a curtsy because I'm not a chick, but I'm doing a deep bow. Yes, a stalking horse reference.
So most people would not know what the stalking horse reference is all about. Matter of fact, probably my favorite stalking horse story was. I've never told this story before. Do you know who Mark Kern is?
I've heard the name, but I don't know.
Mark Kern, I believe, is still at least for a long time, he's the county executive in St. Clair County, right across the river from downtown St. Louis.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Mark Kern, literally, when I was doing my traffic network and we started doing news, Mark Kern literally showed up on my doorstep one day. I mean, literally came to the office one day and introduced himself. We thought to ourselves, who is this guy and what planet did he come from? Good-looking guy, very well-spoken, handsome-looking young guy, probably was 28, 29 at the time. Walked in, explained to us that he was going to become a politician, that he deemed that was going to be his future, and he wanted to learn the news business because he wanted to figure out the other side of the equation. He wanted to see how newsrooms operated and how reporters, and we would send him out in stories. He would go out and cover stories and things like that. Well, anyway, Mark Kern, I believe he started off as alderman in Belleville. He lived in Belleville. And then he got to be the mayor and won election. I believe it was either his mayor or when he ran for county council. Another Mark Kern, spelled the exact same way, filed against him. So there were two Mark Kern, spelled exactly the same, MarkKern, on the ballot. And that was like the classic stalking horse candidate, because the other Mark Kern apparently had been recruited by, I think Mark's a Democrat, and I think the Republicans recruited this other Mark Kern to run against him. And essentially, explain in so many words, what a stalking horse candidate is.
So if you are running for an office and you're facing a tough opponent, or maybe not so tough opponent, and you want to insert another candidate into your same race to take votes away from your opponent, that third candidate in this scenario would be called a stalking horse candidate, because they would be in that horse race, but they would be taking votes away from your opponent. And that's what St. Louis Mayor Tashara Jones' father was accused of doing in 1993. He was running for comptroller, I believe. And he got some white gal, right, to run against another white candidate.
Right, essentially, and split the vote, and he ended up on top because of the fact that they split the vote for the I mean, and to the other example would be like what I gave with Mark Kern, where you try to confuse the voters by having someone with a similar name, right?
Yeah, the exact same name.
Right, the exact same name, or even like the same last name, like you referred to, like Jones. Okay, you could have, well, is it let's say it was Tashara Jones, and maybe they find a Keisha Jones. People go like, okay, Tashara Jones, Keisha Jones, which one's which? You know what I mean? Because
exactly.
The crazy thing about it is, it's just like going back to the old days of the Jay Leno show when he did the street walking, I think he called it, or jaywalking.
Jaywalking, yeah. Street walking is different, Brad.
Right, and he would go out and interview these people. Hey, who's the current president? I don't know. They would, and it's like, what country do they live in? Do they live under a rock somewhere? But that's probably more common than you and I would think, because we know who Bill Eigel is, and we know who Bill Eigel that he's going to run for dog catcher in St. Charles City next election cycle, in addition to running for state rep. And no, he can't be a state rep anymore. He can't be. He could be a state rep, couldn't he?
Because let's see. Yeah, he could.
Yeah,
in fact, he could do that.
Yeah, he could do 8 years in the state as far as in the rep's concerned, because he never was a rep. Normally, the way it works is they run 8 years as a state rep, and then they switch over to running the Senate, stuff like that. So anyway, that's the crazy thing with the stalking horse stuff. Okay, one last thing, and I got to look it up here. I had notes on this, and I can't remember what I was talking about.
And we also know that Eigel's not going to run for state house, because that state house seat that you're talking about has been claimed by Mayor Sean Brown. Wasn't that the guy's name? Who's the guy? Tom Brown? Which guy in St. Peter's went to jail?
That was Sean, I believe.
Sean, okay.
Yes. Oh, okay. Here we go. I saw this yesterday. We've talked about this a couple times, about CBS and the crazy stuff going on in the newsroom, okay? CBS accused of significant and intentional news distortion, that's actually in quotes, in FCC complaint over 60 Minutes edit. This is the crazy story, was when they interviewed Kamala Harris, and there were the same question was asked by the guy who was in her. Who was that? Bill Whitaker? Was it Whitaker interviewed her? Wasn't
Yeah,
he?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. There's two versions of this. The question is the same, but the answer from Kamala is different. So in other words, it's to the point where, like, hold on a minute now. You ask one question, and I think the way it worked was they had a preview, the 60, if I'm not mistaken, 60 Minutes was on Monday night. And remember, that was the one that ran up against the KC Chiefs game, so a lot of people, at least in this area, probably weren't watching that. But anyway, they ran a promo on Sunday, I believe in the Sunday morning news or something like that, and they had the actual question and the actual answer that she did give to that question, which was sort of her word salad stuff. But then on Monday night, when they ran the 60 Minutes interview, they edited it to the point where the question, it was the same question, but a different answer. And I'm going like, remember you talked about that. You said, well, was that done by the campaign? Okay, John, you know as well as I do that the campaign is probably not going to have any direct influence, but the campaign probably knows somebody who works in the news department, and probably knows somebody who's one of the producers or maybe the editors
100%. Absolutely.
at CBS, and they may say, hey, I'm editing the 60 Minutes interview, and you know what, Kamala didn't do a real good job with this. I'm going to make her sound really good. You know what I mean? And
there doesn't need to be a lot of arm twisting, because for CBS, if you're the if you're the umpire, so to speak, or the referee, you're going to make the call in favor of the home team. So when the campaign is like, that answer was kind of cringe, it wasn't very brat, The CBS team will go in there and edit it so that to make Kamala look as good as she could.
Right, because they're pro Kamala, and it doesn't have to be for pro Kamala. Let's say if it was a crazy thing where you had actually a conservative in the news department, at a network, which I believe doesn't exist. But if you did, okay, let me read this paragraph. CBS News has taken heat in recent days for airing two different answers to the same question in its 60 Minutes interview last week with Vice President Kamala Harris. Harris was mocked by conservatives when footage of her offering a lengthy word salad was aired by CBS Face the Nation, which was the Sunday morning program, to promote the 60-minute sit-down when Bill Whitaker asked why it seemed like Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wasn't listening to the U.S. However, the vice president's lengthy answer didn't make the version that aired on Monday night on 60 Minutes, and a shorter, more focused answer to the same question was shown instead. So in other words, they edited her answer to make her look better. And I'm going like, okay, what are you going to do? It's just one of those things. It's just like that guy that came out, you and I always argue over, or not argue, but was it Uri or Yuri? Yuri Berlander wasn't his name?
Yeah, Berliner, yep.
The dude from NPR who came out and said, everybody at NPR is a Democrat, and there are no conservatives at NPR, and everyone voted in the last election. They all voted for Joe Biden, and you and I would like, oh my God, I had no idea. Like, oh, that's shocking news. Why didn't anybody tell us that? It's like, dude, guess what? We've already figured that out.
Well, and as you pointed out, Brad, you could have a million different things happen, and nothing would change the fact that at the core, 45% of people are dead, locked in for Kamala, 45% are for Trump, and then a few people in a swing state that can't make up their mind are still confused. But you know what's going to move them? Not CBS bias. It's going to be either the price of a loaf of bread or Donald Trump making fun of somebody's accent.
Donald Trump could be video of Donald Trump knifing somebody, literally knifing somebody to death, and then there could be video coming out of Kamala Harris along with Ariana Grande at a bakery store licking all the donuts, and guess what? Everything would still be tied. It would still be, the polls are 50-50. It doesn't matter what happens anymore. It's to the point where everybody's locked in. They're I'm going to vote for Kamala, or I'm going to vote for Trump, and you're not going to change anybody's mind. It's just literally going to be, to the point where it's going to be who shows up at the polls. That's what it's going to come down to, right?
And all that we care about is the people show up on the live stream tomorrow morning, Brad, or on YouTube. Either one. We love you both. We love you. You could be sitting under the transmitter off what's Eagle Ridge, High Ridge Road overpass. What is it in Washmo, Brad? What street are you on?
I'm not going to say.
And you could hear us live on the air from 7 to 8 a.m.
John, say goodbye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?